As the CCP virus keeps spreading around the world, more countries are going into quarantine and even complete lockdown. But while we're trying to cope with this virus, could there be another one that's just now getting started in China? How deadly could this new one be? And where did it come from? Let's review the ortho-hantavirus. Ever heard of Anthony Fauci? Or why Trump chose him to be part of his coronavirus task force? Also today, we learn about the French Connection and the part it plays in the creation of this virus. We review an exclusive video previously censored by a French activist with direct physical evidence to France's connection with the Wuhan P4 lab. All this and more, only on today's edition of Edge of Wonder. Wonder.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Edge of Wonder with more updates on the CCP virus. I'm your host Rob, and Ben is with me as always. And we're still on lockdown mode, so right now this is going to be a little bit of a different episode.
Right, because actually I'm in our normal studio and Rob is at his home, so we're kind of doing this remotely. So we'll see how it goes. Should be fine. All right, look, we're just going to jump right into it. So the CCP official media published a statement which says, quote, China made huge sacrifices in order to fight the coronavirus epidemic, and people should be praising the CCP, saying the world owes China a lifetime of thanks. I mean, really, I think what they're saying is, yes, thank us for releasing the virus to make our world a better place. I mean, seriously, give me a break.
And the WHO isn't helping. It's colleagues with the CCP, and they didn't even want to use the word pandemic, but now they have. Aside from that, organized crime syndicates run illegal wet market animal shops in China, and they sell exotic animals from all over the world.
The CCP allows this to continue since they are getting money from it. And the WHO didn't even mention this. Everything illegal in China is handled by the CCP. They don't care as long as they make money from it. So, if they do crack down on someone, it is because they weren't authorized by the party.
On March 24th, the Hubei Provincial Epidemic Prevention and Control Headquarters, because nothing in China can have a small name, announced something that was approved by the central government, that all areas in Hubei except Wuhan were deregulated, meaning things are returning to normal. And starting on April 8th, because the CCP said they don't have any case of the virus for continually 5 days, they will open up Wuhan. But the real reason they don't have any new cases is because they won't accept people at hospitals anymore.
Yes, there are even videos surfacing where people in Wuhan are being pushed out of hospitals. Also, they stopped testing people for the virus. So people are still dying and getting sick. But aside from this, we also received some really bad news in which we pray isn't true. We were even reluctant to talk about it, but we feel we have to for the benefit of the Chinese people who are sacrificing their lives to get this information out. But we were told now that a new virus is being spread in China, which is even more deadly than the COVID-19 coronavirus.
The official name is ortho-hantavirus, aka hantavirus, which is a type of virus that humans can get from interacting with contaminated urine, feces, or saliva of infected rodents. But this also seems to have been genetically modified because it is reported to have an incubation period of 8 weeks, which is an extremely long time. The coronavirus has roughly a 14-day incubation period before symptoms develop. This hantavirus also attacks the respiratory system.
Yet, there's no real treatment for this virus, and it can only be detected and treated if caught very early. We were told that this is just now starting to hit China, specifically Wuhan, but the CCP is saying that they have no more outbreaks because, again, they're not accepting any more patients at the hospitals, so of course it looks like their numbers are down.
If this is true about the 8-week period, and if this virus also came out around the same time as the coronavirus, it means that we won't start seeing people getting sick in the US till at least mid-April or even May. Again, we pray we're wrong with this, but so far all of the info we are getting is directly out of Wuhan from former Chinese officials, doctors, and a few special sources that we've gotten from our research. And it's all been correct so far. Even the mutation of the coronavirus was correct. It's very hard to identify because it brings about various symptoms for different people.
Anthony Fauci, love letters to Clinton and predicts the CCP virus. Next, we wanted to bring up Anthony Fauci, who is the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, or NIAID, who is a member of the President Trump's coronavirus task force. There are a lot of questions online about him and questions on why Trump chose him as well. We did some digging and found some interesting things in the Clinton emails on WikiLeaks.
The first email we found is titled Remarks of Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton at a World in Transition, Charting a New Path in Global Health. The email reads, quote, Cheryl, Lois, wow, very rarely does a speech bring me to tears, but this one did it. Talk about telling it like it is. This was a basis-loaded home run. Please tell the secretary that I love her more than ever. You guys too, of course. Best regards, Tony. Blah!
So there's another one too. And the second one reads, Cheryl, anyone who had any doubts about the secretary's stamina and capability following her illness had those doubts washed away by today's performance before the Senate and the House. She faced extremely difficult circumstances at the hearings and still she hit it right out of the park. Please tell her that we all love her and are very, very proud to know her. Warm regards, Tony.
But this gets even better. In 2017, Fauci spoke at a forum on pandemic preparedness at Georgetown University and mentioned that the Trump administration will not only be challenged by ongoing global health threats such as influenza and HIV, but also a surprise disease outbreak. What? Yes, he said that. The quote is, quote, there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic and ongoing, but also there will be a surprise outbreak, unquote. I mean, that's a quote from this guy.
Yes, he says this directly. And then he goes on to say, the history of the last 32 years that I have been the director of NIAID will tell the next administration that there is no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges their predecessors were faced with.
It's very interesting that Trump chose him to work with, but maybe he didn't have a choice. Maybe something deeper is going on. Maybe Fauci switched sides. I mean, he was giggling at that deep state comment that Trump made the other day. But it was hilarious when Trump mentioned the deep state department in one of his recent live press conferences, and old Fauci there did a facepalm. I think we all laughed at once on that one.
Yeah. Still not sure, I mean, these emails were written in like 2012, so who knows? Maybe things have changed.
I mean, maybe he really didn't know.
Maybe. Anyway, moving on. Amazon workers get the virus. So far, 8 Amazon workers have been tested positive for the CCP virus. Warehouse workers at 2 separate locations in New York, Staten Island, and Queens tested positive. So what could be the repercussions of this? It is possible that Amazon may either have to close these facilities or send all their staff home, or maybe just bring in new fresh staff, which hopefully that will happen.
The other side effect could be if more and more people get the virus in New York, workers may get too afraid to make deliveries, or at least to the really bad parts, or just stop altogether, which will be very scary if that happens. Also on March 27th, our corrupt Mayor Bill de Blasio said that New York City will likely stay on lockdown until May. And if what we're saying is true about the second outbreak hitting China now, we might get hit again in May. This is going to be a rough ride for everyone if this is true.
Yep, it sure will be. One world government. Well, in other news, the former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown is now saying we need a one world government to cope with the spread of the COVID-19 virus, or what we call the CCP virus. Yes, he is actually saying this. So if you thought that the idea of the one world government was just a crazy Illuminati conspiracy and still don't think it's real, maybe you should just go back to sleep.
There are so many issues with this, such as what if China places their own person at the top or buys them out or blackmails them? How would this be regulated? Even Nigel Farage, the leader of the Brexit Party, a founding member of the UK Independence Party, said in a tweet, quote, "Gordon Brown doesn't get it. Globalization is the cause of our problems, not our savior," unquote.
What is great is that English Catholic writer Lawrence England tweeted in response to Brown's call for a New World Order, more disturbing than naive. He wrote, "Gordon Brown does get it. The one world government is about sheer power over populace, not about helping people. They want a world of slaves. He was a key Bilderberg attendee."
Boom, mic drop. According to Bilderberg.org, yes, there is such a thing. Gordon Brown is named as the global leader for tomorrow by the World Economic Forum. We also did a massive episode on the history of the Bilderberg Group on our edgeofwonder.tv, which will be published this week, so be sure to check that out.
Question: who created the New World Order? How did it actually come to be? What are some of the organizations involved? Well, ever heard of the Council on Foreign Relations? The Bilderberg Group? The Trilateral Commission? The Club of Rome? The Royal Institute of International Affairs? And of course, the United Nations. What do all these groups have in common anyway? Most of all, what are their true objectives? Prepare for a brand new series called The Roundtable, only on edgeofwonder.tv. Get access now.
But just about any high-profile person you can think of has pretty much been at these Bilderberg meetings, including, you have David Rockefeller, Bill Gates, Bill and Hillary Clinton, Angela Merkel, Tony Blair, various Rothschilds, and oh my gosh, so many more, including within the Chinese Communist Party. But just kind of as a side note, Donald Trump has never been invited nor ever been to a meeting, but Jared Kushner was recently.
Recently, a French activist uploaded a video to YouTube and to other social media platforms where he talked about the French connection to the Wuhan P4 lab. It is being deleted on all platforms, and currently it isn't found online anymore anywhere. We downloaded the video and had someone transcribe it for us, so there.
This video made such an impact that it forced the French manufacturer company Pasteur Institute to publish a statement on their website in an attempt to debunk its claim, even though the video was only up for 1 day. So the person in the video describes a lot of the documents that he personally had related to the patent of this virus.
For starters, he mentions that the inauguration day of the P4 lab in Wuhan was dated February 23rd, 2017, and that the CEO of INSERM, Mr. Yves Levy, was the person who inaugurated the lab. Levy is married to Agnes Buzyn, who was the Minister of Solidarity and Health till she stepped down in February. Right now, doctors in France have filed a lawsuit against her and a few other French officials. It argues that she and her colleague were aware of the danger and had the means of action, which they nevertheless chose not to exercise.
So in this video, this French guy explains what he found, which is similar to what we found in our first few episodes on the CCP virus. He said that his team found 2 strains of the virus and it had a match to SARS from 2003. So we stated that the virus has parts of SARS, specifically the H spikes, which are nearly an exact match as the SARS virus. Only about 4 things are different. And then the envelopes, which are the outer layer structures of some viruses that encloses the capsid of the virus, and the capsids are the protein shell of the virus. The envelope is an exact match to another virus in a gene bank in China, which was submitted by the Nanjing military. So basically, this means that it would be impossible for this particular strain of virus to happen naturally, since it has both of these connected to it.
However, they found a European patent for a new strain of coronavirus associated with SARS and its applications. We will show you the document now. He says the patent was under number EP1694829B1. He goes on to say that they took two viruses, with one sample being studied in Hanoi, Vietnam, which was in 2003.
He proves this by showing the description on page 3 of the patent. Under 0001, it says, quote, well, it says it in French, but this is what it translated in English. The present invention is related to a new strain of coronavirus associated with severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, from a sample listed under the number 031589 and sampled in Hanoi, Vietnam.
He goes on to say that there is a team of them working on this, but that no one else wanted to use their names for the video. He even explains that he isn't an Illuminati Freemason conspiracy theorist, but he believes that it is impossible for it to be natural.
His main point in the video that if this is a new strain of the virus, then how were they experimenting on various animals since 2003 and documenting it? He believes that this could have been a way for them to perfect the virus over the years to get it to how they want it.
But aside from this, he explains that the documents show that mice produced antibodies after immunization against the SARS-CoV and that the virus was neutralized. This was from 2003. He said that over 1.3 million Chinese people were vaccinated, then by the Pasteur Institute, who had created the antidote.
He compares the vaccines with the measles vaccine and the connection on why it is rare for children to contact the coronavirus. And if or when a vaccine comes out, he suspects it will be similar to the measles vaccine. Now, we do have to take note, however, that it is normal for pharmaceutical companies to create a patent for a virus in order for them to make the patent vaccines. I mean, this is actually kind of a loophole in the system that definitely won't exist in the future. But this is why we are seeing patents for viruses.
Because this video got so viral within one day, Pasteur Institute was forced to publish a response claiming that they never created this virus and that they reiterated that this is a strain of coronavirus that came from bats and not from the Wuhan P4 lab.
But in the video, he pointed out that maybe not the final version of this COVID-19 strain came from them, but it's possible that they were working on other strains and that this COVID-19 came from that. But then the question comes up. There would have been so many people working on this that it would have been impossible to hide, right? Plus, he mentioned so many names who have worked in the Pasteur Institute in the video.
Well, this comes back to compartmentalization, which is what they do in top security levels when they need a lot of people to work on something. The atomic bomb or the Manhattan Project is a perfect example of this. We've told you guys that before. Hundreds of people worked on it, but none of them even knew what they were building. Only the top level people actually had the bird's eye view.
And each person only had a very specific part they were working with and had no idea what they were actually building a bomb. Now, we aren't claiming this for this company, but honestly, we don't know if they were involved, but we wanted to present you guys with what we found.
However, we do know that the Harvard professor Charles Lieber was arrested and was involved in building the P4 lab and even got his own research team in China for helping the CCP. And now the president of Harvard, Lawrence Bacow, and his wife both have the virus. So do they really have the virus?
Yeah, this is really interesting connections. I mean, the connections to the CCP run so deep that it's even hard to track everything that's coming out. However, there is a massive article called Wuhan P4 Laboratory, a part of Pandora's Box, that goes into great detail the connections and all the companies who aided the China P4 lab. It also talks at great length on the former CCP leader Jiang Zemin, who basically we called the Antichrist in our last episode, and how he is at the center of this entire thing.
Conclusion. This is what we'll cover in our next episode, along with more updates and other things. We also know that there's a lot of conflicting information out there being said by a lot of different people, but one subject we know more than anything else is basically China. A lot of Chinese insiders are secretly still part of the CCP and deep down still want to protect their homeland. Some are for Xi Jinping and others are for Jiang Zemin. So you must know what side they stand on before you make any assumptions. And many people don't understand the war between these factions, and this still may not be enough to decipher.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very confusing. China has the most twisted and confusing regime in the world, and it's going to be hard for people to sort through who is truly on which side. Some of it is going to be real, and then, this disinfo will come in following the real stuff, just like what the deep state does over here. So one way to test it is to see if they truly quit the party, and not just quit the party, but are trying to get others to quit as well. There are other methods too. I mean, we trust our own sources because many have risked their lives to get the real info out, and some have even been arrested. All of them despise Jiang Zemin and his gang of scoundrels and want to see the CCP destroyed.
It's very hard for the world to understand what's going on in China, and people don't understand how evil the CCP is. Imagine a regime so evil, officials within the party would gladly kill their own family members if they don't agree with the party's wishes. If they would do this to their own family, they would do anything against the world.
Yeah, because of this, we really think President Trump needs to put a ton more pressure on the Chinese leader Xi Jinping. We know he didn't release the virus, but we know he is covering up for those who created it and covering up the real numbers of deaths in China, which is in the millions.
And to be clear, we don't know what President Trump and Xi Jinping are discussing behind closed door. It very well could be that Trump is putting tons of pressure on him, just to be fair. Although we do feel currently publicly he's being a little too soft on the CCP and needs to put a ton more pressure on him to force him to work with international authorities and not just the World Health Organization, which the CCP has in their back pocket. The WHO is protecting the CCP instead of actually doing their job.
And we just made a video on the World Health Organization that we'll publish soon on edgeofwonder.tv from its inception into the connections it has with the CCP, so be on the lookout for that one. So that pretty much wraps up this episode. For the next one, we're definitely going to go into the P4 lab, the connections with Jiang Zemin, and more updates that we just couldn't fit into this episode.
And until next time, we'll see you out
on the edge. All right, let's start.
You said academic instead of epidemic.
Ah, shoot. Okay.
Hold on. Levy is married to Agnes Buzon. What? Buzzian?
Buzon.
Buzon. Okay, I'm going to do that whole thing over, guys.
Oh, yeah, impossible.
Oh, my bad. Let me do that again.